Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video I'm going to teach you how to play Branded Despia. So I'm going to go through what the monsters do, what the spells do, what everything does, and then I'm going to jump into live gameplay and I'm going to show you what I would do with the cards and stuff. So there's your Despia monsters, and then you've got Bystial monsters. This is Tragedy. You want to send this to the graveyard or banish it. This card searches a Despia card. Mostly Branded Fusion is what you want first, and then you go from there. This card, if there's a fusion monster on the field that has Albaz in its text, this is basically a negate. This is like a secondary thing you want to grab. This is, in my eyes, it's basically another Aluber. If you have a fusion monster, this material, you can special summon this card. Branded spells and traps. So yeah, I've got the Edge Imp Chain package in here, which includes this card, and irregular Polymerization. So I'm just going to get into some live gameplay, so I'll just explain things on the spot. So we're here in solo, and I've chosen to go first. I'm going first to show you how to do some combos and some lines without getting interrupted. So what I've got in my hand here is an Edge Imp Chain, which starts that Edge Imp package. This card draws cards, and this card special summon a few cards. So what I would do here is draw some cards with Allure of Darkness, and its cost for drawing 2 cards is to banish a dark monster. I played this card first because Fallen of Albaz is a dark monster. I have 2 of them, so I'm not wasting resources, and I'm also keeping a resource. And this card I want to discard because you gain effects from discarding this card. The 2 cards I've drawn is a second fusion deployment and Despian Tragedy. So I can banish this card or this card. Fallen of Albaz you don't want to banish. In this situation you would want to get rid of this card, because if this card is sent to the graveyard or banished, you gain effects from it, and then you're going to get this effect of Tragedy. If it's sent to the graveyard or banished by card effect, you can add 1 Despia monster from your deck to your hand except Despian Tragedy. Yes. And you want to add Aluber. Aluber is your starting monster in Despia, and you can grab you any card you want. So yes. As you can see, you can grab any spell you want. The strongest spell you want first off the start of your combos is Branded Fusion. So if you don't have it already, grab it with Aluber. And then here, you would summon this card. And this card is basically a fusion summon as a monster, as you can see, which is its effect there. During the main phase, you can fusion summon 1 level 8 or higher fusion monster from your extra deck, using monsters from hand or field. So, in this situation, with a Cartesia, you would like to summon Yugioh the Dusk Dragon here. So I'm just going to use this for the purpose of example. What Yugioh does is, you send a card to the graveyard. If you don't have Branded Fusion, you want to send this card to the graveyard, and in the end phase that'll have effects. This is like your main turn 1 combo that I'm about to show you. So you summon Albion the Branded Dragon with 2 materials from the deck, which you send to the graveyard. Summon that to the field. Summon Albion to the field. And then Albion's effect, you fusion summon Lubellion the Searing Dragon with materials from the graveyard or banished. So Aluber from the graveyard, Albaz from the graveyard, which get banished. Summon Lubellion. Then Lubellion's effect is discard a card. I'm going to discard Edge Imp Chain to gain effects from it. If this card is sent from the hand or field to the graveyard, you can add 1 Frightfur card from your deck to your hand. And the card in this deck that you're going to grab is this card, Frightfur Patchwork, which just add 1 Edge Imp monster and a Polymerization. So discard Edge Imp Chain off Lubellion's effect. Summon Mirrorjade with Lubellion and the Albaz that we banished. And then summon Mirrorjade. and then discarded Edge Imp Chain off Lubellion the Syrian Dragon. So we're going to say yes, and then grab Frightfur Patchwork. This card will get you the Edge Imp Chain back to your hand, plus a Polymerization card. So to summon Mirror Jade with that Lubellion, you have to use Fallen of Albaz and the Lubellion, which is what we sent back into the deck. Effect Resolution. You send back Lubellion and the banished Fallen of Albaz to summon Mirror Jade. So that's how the summoning of Mirror Jade works. To summon Albion, you have to send Bystial Lubellion. You have to send it as one of your materials to keep the combo flowing. The reason you send Bystial Lubellion, that you now have an opportunity to special summon it from the graveyard. And to special summon it, you need a level 8 or higher dragon monster on the field, and that's exactly what Albion is. So you special summon it by attributing Albion, summon Bystial Lubellion from the graveyard. And what this does is, why you want this on the field, this is going to add back row to your field directly from your deck. And what these cards do is, this card protects fusion summons, and you also get to add monsters from your deck to your hand after the fusion summon. Basically, this card, you send back a banished monster after it's been banished, and you can draw a card. So I like to use this effect and put Regained on the field. If you have Branded Fusion, you would want to put Branded Lost on the field to protect the fusion summons off your Branded Fusion. If you've already done Branded Fusion, you probably want to just add Regain to the field just there. So I'll show you what this card does. That card adds the Polymerization and one Edge Imp Chain back to your hand from the deck. You can use this Polymerization. This card is a once per turn effect. What you would want to do is keep this card on the field until you've got all your back row support. Mirror Jade's effect, send a fusion monster from your extract to your graveyard that matches Fallen of Albaz. That is mainly going to be Albion, because in the end phase it actually gets to activate effects. I'm going to show you what Polymerization can do. You can summon a bunch of stuff. In this situation, I would actually choose Dragostapelia, because in order to summon it, you need a fusion monster and a dark monster. So you could use Yugioh as your fusion monster, then Fallen of Albaz or Edge Imp Chain as the dark monster. Summon Dragostapelia. The reason I summoned Dragostapelia instead of keeping Yugioh is because we've already used this effect. You can target one of your opponent's monsters and negate its effects by putting a counter on it. So on this field here we have once per turn back row adding to your field. You have a negate, a monster negate, and a monster banish with Mirror Jade. So I'm going to go into next turn. Okay, so this is Albion's graveyard effects. Press yes, and then you can add one of your cards. What you want to do is, now that Branded Fusion's to 1, it's the combo to get it back. So you need Retribution, and you set that to the field. Branded Retribution does is, when it's in the graveyard, you can banish it, grab Branded Fusion, and add it back to your hand. When it's on the field, you can send back one fusion monster on your field, or 2 in your graveyard, to negate a special summon. So you would use that effect, it'll go to the grave, then you can add Branded Fusion back. Cartesia's end phase effect is that you can add it back to the hand. Just like that, so you can continuous advantage fusion summon this card alone. It doesn't matter if this card is face down or face up, you can still banish it with Mirror Jade by sending a card to the graveyard. So with Mirror Jade's effect, you can send Albion or any of these cards, but some cards have graveyard effects off Mirror Jade's banish effect. So Albion has an effect and Brigrand has an effect. What Albion does is add a branded spell trap back to your hand. And what this does is add Tri-Brigade Mercourier, which you will see in the end phase here. So now it's the end phase, press yes to add Tri-Brigade Mercourier back to your hand. You can also add Fallen of Albaz, but it would be more useful to add this back since I have a fusion monster that has Fallen of Albaz in its text. Because when that happens, you have a Fallen of Albaz text fusion card on your field. This card gets to negate a special summon from your opponent. So you add that, and when you get to this point, you can add a special summon it to the field, or press no and add it to your hand. You want to add it to your hand because it has a end trap. And now that it's the next turn, you can activate Lubellion's effect again, put Lost on the field to protect our fusion summons. So you can actually special summon Blazing Cartesia if you have a Fallen of Albaz on your field or in your graveyard. We would have one in the graveyard, so you can special summon this. And then you can activate its effect to fusion summon. So you can really do anything you want. What you're summoning after Mirror Jade is basically specific to your game and to what your opponent's playing. So if you're, just for an example, if your opponent is doing a bunch of stuff, summoning and doing heaps of stuff, this could be a good card. This is basically attacks dragon, right? While you control this card, your opponent has to pay 600 life points to activate cards or effects. So I'm going to use Blazing Cartesia because it comes back to the hand. It's recyclable. And Aluber. So these two fusion summon. The reason I used those two monsters is because you need a Despia monster and a light or dark. Aluber was the Despia monster, Cartesia was a light monster in this case, but you can also use a dark monster. And now that I've fusion summoned with Lost on the field, I can now add one of these monsters to my hand. So what these monsters do is, this monster is basically a second or third Aluber. You can add branded spell traps cards to your hand. What this card is sends those cards to the graveyard, sends itself back to the deck, and then you can draw one card. If this card is in your graveyard and does its effect, sends one card to the graveyard and sends itself back to the deck. You don't get to draw a card, but if you use this card from your hand to send itself to the graveyard, to send one card to the graveyard and then send itself back to the deck, you get to then draw a card. So this card's mainly useful if it's from the hand. I'll just show you what that looks like. Activate effect, send a card to the graveyard, send itself back and draw a card. So I sent Branded Opening because if it's in the graveyard, you basically get to stop your opponent from destroying your monsters by banishing this card. It's a good starter because you can just directly summon Aluber from your deck to grab Branded Fusion or Branded Lost to protect your Branded Fusion if you already have Branded Fusion. And yeah, by this point in the duel you will have enough to have So yeah, there's game 1, and let's get into game 2. So now that we're in game 2, different hand, different combos, different rules. So let's look at our hand here. So we have Regained, a Deployment, and an Aluber that we can use first. You also have Maxx to respond to your opponent's plays, but first you would want to summon something or do something to bait out their Ash Blossom, right? Because it's nearly always going to happen. So what I would do, use Branded Regained first, because it's a continuous spell. If it gets destroyed or something or whatever, it doesn't really matter, because there's ways to add it back. So Regained, I would do Deployment to summon Cartesia, so you could use Cartesia's effect to also use Aluber to special summon a fusion monster. Then you have its effect available here for a normal summon to summon your Aluber. Aluber's effect adds a branded card, spell trap, so you would add Branded Fusion. If you already had this card, you would add Branded Lost to protect Branded Fusion, but I don't have Branded Lost already, so I would grab Branded Fusion. You could do either or, but I would do this effect first, just in case your opponent has something, so this effect doesn't get negated. Cartesia's effect is to summon either 4 of these monsters. In this situation, turn 1, I would summon Yugioh to send a monster to the graveyard to get more advantage. You could summon Yugioh in this situation, or Masquerade to burn your opponent if they're already doing stuff in your first turn. After these two options, in this situation I would summon Virtuous. What this card does is it reduces your opponent's monsters to 0 attack and defense if it's below, so Yugioh, these two monsters. Summoned it just like that. Effect to send a monster to the graveyard. In this situation, I wouldn't worry about any of these fusion cards except for this one and this one. What Albion does is, in the end phase, it will add a branded spell trap, or set one branded spell trap directly from your deck. And then you can add Fallen of Albaz or Tri-Brigade Mercourier. You could also send Saronir. You could send something else off Saronir. Reduce the amount of cards in your deck to increase the chances of good card draws. But in this situation on the first turn, I would send Albion. And then you can do your Branded Fusion combo. So summon Albion by sending Lubellion and Albaz. Summon Lubellion using Aluber and Albaz from the graveyard to be banished. Summon Lubellion. Lubellion's effect. Discard card. Because I've actually banished a card, Regain's effect is now going to activate. Send one of your banished monsters back. You get to draw a card. Result, so send that back to the deck, draw a card, and then you can special summon Mirrorjade using the banished Albaz and Lubellion, sending it back to the deck. The reason with Regain's effect, the reason I sent Aluber back instead of Fallen of Albaz is because off Lubellion's effect, you can send an Albaz back to the deck. I wouldn't be able to send an Aluber back to the deck in this situation, which is why I would send Aluber back to the deck first off Regained, and then use Lubellion to send Albaz back from the banish zone. So you've used your resources and sent them back to completely recycle everything, whilst gaining Mirrorjade. So you've sent the Bystial Lubellion to the graveyard of Albion's effect. Summon it off Albion. Turn 1, you activate your effect. And add a back row card. Regained or Branded Lusty. What this board has is a back row add to the field. This card, if your opponent special summons a card, this card will banish itself and then summon a level 6 or higher light or dark monster from your deck or extra deck. This card sends to banish a card. Then you also have Maxx, the end phase effects, Albion, and then set Retribution. Cartesia in the graveyard, add that back to your hand to also recycle that. It's set this card, use its effect to send Albion normally, but we don't have them in the extra deck because I've sent them both for the first turn combo. So I would send Brigrand, banish his card, and phase effect for Brigrand, activate, and then you would add Tri-Brigade Mercourier, which is this card. In this case, I'm going to activate Retribution. You would never do this on your own effects, but I would. I'm going to activate Retribution here to show you what it does. So when you activate Retribution, you have this option here. Turn cards from the graveyard to the extra deck. What this means is you would send any fusion monster cards here. So you could send Brigrand, an Albion, or 2 Albions. If you say no, you have to send a fusion monster from your field to back to the extra deck. So you would send Yugioh or Mirrorjade to negate the effect. But I'm going to show you the graveyard option. Turn cards from the graveyard to the extra deck. Yes, in this case I would send 2 Albions back. 1, 2. Negate the effect. Now you have this option in the graveyard to banish this card from your graveyard, target a branded spell trap, add it to your hand. So activate effect, banish, grab Branded Fusion, back to your hand. Activate effect, send opening to stop your opponent from destroying your monsters by banishing this card. So send that to the graveyard, send that back, draw a card. Normal summon here, activate Aluber, add from your deck to your hand, Branded Opening. What Branded Opening does, activate effect, discard Edge Imp Chain because it has graveyard effects. I'm going to select Ad Libitum. After you have selected your monster, you can summon it to the field or send it to your hand. Yes sends it to the field, no sends it to your hand. So I'm going to add it to your hand to show you the combo with Ad Libitum, Edge Imp's graveyard effect, add Frightfur Patchwork, activate Patchwork, adds Polymerization and Edge Imp Chain from the deck to the hand, Branded Fusion here. So I'm going to go Lubellion using 2 monsters from the deck to save resources from the hand and field. I'm going to send Saronir and Albaz to the graveyard to summon Lubellion. Because I've summoned a fusion monster with Branded Lost on the field, I get to add a monster from my deck to my hand. And then chain 2, we have Lubellion's effect here by discarding a card. I'm going to discard Cartesia because I won't need it, and I get to recycle it in the end phase from the graveyard to the hand. I've sent Saronir and Albaz. I sent Saronir because it has graveyard effects. So yeah, I sent Saronir because it has a graveyard effect. Its effect is you get to send something from the deck to the graveyard. I don't have anything else left that you would send, so I'm just going to send that. Then Lubellion's effect. In this situation, if your opponent had monsters on the field, I would probably summon this to negate your opponent's monsters, or maybe this to reduce your opponent's attack. My opponent doesn't have any monsters. If they activate anything with this on the field, it's going to reduce their life points. So I'm going to summon the Masquerade using a Despia monster. I could have used Aluber or Ad Libitum, and then I'm also going to use Brigrand to recycle it back into the extra deck to summon Masquerade the Blazing Dragon. And then Branded Loss effect add a monster. So I'm going to add Mercourier to negate your opponent's special summons. What you also could do here is Polymerization into another fusion monster. But by this point, you have enough attack to reduce your opponent's life. Now I'm going to show you my deck. So this is it here, Branded Despia. I've got 2 Tragedy, 3 Maxx, 2 Edge Imp Chain, 3 Fallen of Albaz, 2 Aluber. You would run this at 3 if you could. Tri-Brigade Mercourier, Kitt, Cartesia, Saronir, and Ad Libitum, Lubellion, 2 Poly, Foolish Burial, 3 Allure, Frightfur Patchwork 3, Fusion Deployment 3, 1 Branded Fusion. You would run this at 3 if you lost, regained, called by the grave, 2 opening, 1 red. So the extra deck, there's a Starving Venom Fusion Dragon. And what this card does is gain attack equal to your opponent's monster. This is a monster negate. Send to the graveyard to add this card. This is part of the main combo. This reduces your opponent's monster's attack to 0. It's below level 8 high fusion monster. This reduces life points. This banishes by sending a monster. This summons Mirror Jade. This gets your deck flowing by sending stuff to the graveyard. This actually negates Fusion Synchro or Xyz or Link monster's effect that your opponent controls. This is basically a beat stick. You can summon Anaconda to send a Branded Fusion, summon Mirror Jade. Let me know if you want to see any other type of video, because I'm going to start talking in my videos. So if you like the video, subscribe if you haven't already. I might do some ranked gameplay if you want to see that, and show you what it would look like against a real person. So I think you might like that. It might be educational. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.